I'm recording this from a cabin in the Cascade Mountains that doesn't belong to me. The owner, a native elder I won't name, is allowing me to stay here while I process what I witnessed 3 weeks ago. While I try to reconcile what I saw with everything I thought I understood about humanity, about consciousness, about what it means to be civilized. My hands are still shaking when I think about it. Not from fear, though there was plenty of that, but from the weight of understanding something so profound, so fundamentally challenging to our species' self-image, that I know most people will dismiss it as fantasy or delusion. I'm sharing it anyway, because what that creature showed me, what it communicated through gesture and symbol and impossible articulation, needs to be heard. Even if hearing it forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about what we are and what we've become. Before I tell you what happened, you need to do something immediately. Hit that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel this second. But most critically, download this entire video the moment it finishes. Save it to multiple devices. Upload it elsewhere. Email it to people you trust. Make physical backups. Because what I'm about to share challenges fundamental assumptions about human exceptionalism, about our place in the natural order, about whether we're the pinnacle of consciousness or just the loudest. And there are people, institutions, organizations, belief systems that have strong incentives to suppress information that questions humanity's unique status. Don't let them succeed. Preserve this testimony however you can. My name is Dr. Sarah Chun. I'm 39 years old. I have a PhD in anthropology from Columbia University, with specializations in indigenous knowledge systems and human-wildlife interactions. For the last 12 years, I've been conducting field research with Native American communities throughout the Pacific Northwest, documenting traditional ecological knowledge that Western science is only beginning to acknowledge as valid. I've published in peer-reviewed journals. I've lectured at major universities. My academic credentials are beyond question. I'm telling you this so you understand. I'm not someone prone to flights of fancy. I'm a trained scientist with a reputation built on rigorous methodology and skeptical inquiry. 3 months ago, I was invited by a tribal elder from the Lummi Nation to participate in a research project he described as documenting knowledge that cannot be written. I'd worked with this community for 5 years, had earned enough trust that they were willing to share certain traditional teachings. The invitation came with conditions. No recording devices during the actual teaching, no specific location details to be published, no names to be used without explicit permission. Standard protocols for protecting indigenous knowledge. The elder, I'll call him William, though that's not his name, met me at a trailhead in the North Cascades on October 5th. He was in his late 70s, a respected shaman and keeper of traditional stories that his community had preserved for thousands of years. We'd spoken many times before, but always in formal interview settings. This was different. This was him offering to show me something, not just tell me about it. Dr. Chun, he said, as we began hiking, what I'm going to show you will challenge everything your education taught you about human uniqueness. Everything your culture believes about consciousness and civilization. Are you prepared for that? I think so. I've spent years studying how indigenous knowledge often contradicts Western assumptions. This is different. This isn't about plant medicine or seasonal patterns. This is about what it means to be human, what it means to be conscious, what it means to be civilized, and whether your people are any of those things in the ways you believe you are. We hiked for 6 hours, deep into wilderness that wasn't on any map I'd studied. William moved with surprising agility for his age, following paths that were invisible to me, reading the forest in ways I'd never learned despite years of field research. Around mid-afternoon, we reached a valley I didn't recognize. Dense old-growth forest, a creek running through the center, rock formations that suggested glacial activity from millennia past. William stopped at the edge of the valley, made a sound I'd never heard him make before, a low, complex vocalization that echoed through the trees. Not words in any language I knew. Something older. Something that felt like it had been part of this landscape since before humans spoke any modern language. "What are you doing?" I asked. announcing our presence, asking permission to approach. The old protocols. The ones your people forgot when you decided forests were empty spaces to be conquered rather than homes to be respected. We waited maybe 5 minutes. Then I heard a response. Another vocalization from somewhere in the valley. Similar structure to William's call, but deeper, resonant, coming from something with a chest cavity far larger than human. He's agreed to see us, William said. Remember, no sudden movements. No aggressive postures. Show respect the way you would to any elder who's agreed to share knowledge with you. William, what exactly are we meeting? You'll see. Come. We descended into the valley, following the creek upstream. And that's when I saw the shelter. Not a cave exactly. More like a structure built into a rock overhang, using branches and moss and materials that blended so perfectly with the environment that I wouldn't have noticed it if William hadn't led me directly to it. Sophisticated construction, showing understanding of insulation, water drainage, wind protection. Indigenous architecture that Western anthropology would attribute to humans, but that clearly wasn't human in origin. And sitting in front of that shelter, watching us approach, was the being William had brought me to meet. He was massive. 8 feet tall even sitting down, with shoulders that suggested incredible strength. Covered in reddish-brown fur that was grayed with age around the face and chest. The face itself was remarkable, too flat to be an ape, too structured to be anything I recognized from paleoanthropology. And the eyes, dark, intelligent, fixed on me with an intensity that made it clear this wasn't an animal. This was a person, different from human, but undeniably a person. I stopped walking, my academic training warring with the impossibility of what I was seeing. William continued forward, made another vocalization, gestured to me. The creature responded with sounds of his own. A conversation I couldn't understand, but could recognize as genuine communication. Dr. Chun, William said, I'd like you to meet one of the first people. The ones who were here before any humans arrived. The ones who watched my ancestors come across the land bridge 12,000 years ago and decided to let us stay. The ones your culture has renamed Sasquatch or Bigfoot because naming things is how you convince yourselves you understand them. I need you to stop here and comment. Tell me if you would have believed what you were seeing. Tell me if you would have stayed or run. Because what happened next, what this being showed me and communicated to me over the following 3 hours, changed everything I thought I understood about consciousness and civilization. So comment now. Are you ready to have your assumptions challenged? The creature gestured to a spot near him. Invitation to sit. I looked at William, who nodded. So I sat, maybe 10 feet from something that shouldn't exist according to Western science, trying to control my shaking hands and racing thoughts. The creature watched me for a long moment. Then he reached beside him and picked up something I hadn't noticed. A collection of objects. Human objects. He laid them out carefully between us, arranging them with obvious intention. A smartphone. Cracked screen, but recognizably modern. A plastic water bottle. A granola bar wrapper. A piece of fishing line. A shotgun shell. All clearly collected from human presence in these mountains. He pointed to each object, then made a complex gesture. William translated. He's asking if you know what these are. If you understand what they represent. Yes, they're human artifacts. Trash mostly. Things people left behind in the wilderness. The creature made a sound that might have been affirmation. Then he picked up the smartphone, held it in his massive hand, studied it. And he made a series of gestures and vocalizations that William translated with obvious discomfort. He says, this device connects you to all human knowledge, all human communication. You can speak to anyone, anywhere. Access information from across the world. Your people call this progress. Call it advancement. Call it proof of your superior intelligence. But he wants to know, does it make you wiser? Does it make you kinder? Does it help you live in balance with the world that sustains you? I didn't know how to answer. The creature continued, picking up each object in turn, holding it, examining it. Through William's translation, he explained what each one represented to him. The plastic bottle. Human creativity used to create something that lasts forever but serves a purpose for only minutes. Ingenuity wasted on convenience that poisons the world. The granola bar wrapper. Food wrapped in material that will outlive the person who ate it by centuries. Short-term satisfaction, creating eternal pollution. The fishing line. Technology that catches more than needed, that doesn't discriminate between target and bycatch, that tangles and kills indiscriminately long after the fisher has left. Your species, the creature communicated through William, has incredible intelligence, incredible creativity. You can shape the world in ways no other species can. You can create tools, art, systems of incredible complexity. But you use this intelligence in ways that destroy rather than sustain, that take rather than give back, that prioritize immediate comfort over long-term survival. This is not wisdom. This is intelligence without consciousness, power without responsibility. He set the objects aside and gestured to the shelter behind him, to the forest around us, to the creek flowing through the valley. And through William, he said something that made my chest tighten. My people have lived in these mountains for millions of years. We've seen ice ages come and go. We've seen forests grow and burn and grow again. We've seen hundreds of species emerge and vanish. And we've survived by living with the forest, not against it. By taking only what we need. By understanding that everything is connected. That harming the forest harms us. That sustainability isn't a concept. It's the basic requirement for existence. Then my people arrived. Your ancestors. 12,000 years ago. We watched them cross from the north. Watched them spread across the land. At first they lived like we did. Took only what they needed. Respected the balance. We coexisted. Sometimes they saw us. Sometimes we helped them. Left them food during hard winters. Guided them away from dangerous areas. We were neighbors. Different species, but sharing the land with mutual respect. But then something changed. Your people discovered agriculture, discovered how to control food production rather than moving with seasonal patterns. And that control became addiction. You wanted to control more. Control water, control animals, control other humans. Control became your species' defining characteristic. And everything you've created since then, your cities, your technology, your civilization, it's all built on the belief that control is progress. That dominating nature is advancement. He paused, and through William's translation, I heard genuine sadness in his communication. We watched this transformation, watched your species choose a path that separated you from the natural world, watched you forget the old knowledge, forget that everything is connected. Forget that taking without giving back eventually leads to collapse. And we withdrew, went deeper into the forests, hid from you. Not because we feared you, though we had reason to, but because we were ashamed for you. Ashamed to watch an intelligent species make choices that would inevitably destroy them. You call yourselves the pinnacle of evolution, the most intelligent species, the rulers of the earth. But intelligence without wisdom is just cleverness. And cleverness without conscience is just destruction with extra steps. You're not the pinnacle. You're the anomaly. The one species that uses its intelligence to destroy its own habitat. The one species that creates systems that ensure its own extinction. William stopped translating. Looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. He's asking if you want him to continue. He says what comes next is harder to hear. It's about what your people have become, what you've lost in the process of becoming civilized. Do you want to hear it? I nodded, not trusting my voice. The creature studied me for another moment, then continued. Through William's translation, he explained their observations of humanity over thousands of years, how they'd watched us develop language, art, complex social structures. How they've been impressed by human creativity, by our ability to adapt and innovate. How they'd hoped for a long time that we would find balance, that we would use our intelligence to live sustainably rather than destructively. But you didn't, he communicated. You chose expansion over sustainability, growth over balance, individual comfort over collective survival. And in the process, you lost things that made your ancestors almost as wise as we are. He gestured to his head, then to his chest, then to the forest around us. Through William, you lost the ability to sense the forest, to feel its rhythms, to know when balance is disturbed. Your ancestors had this, could feel when they'd taken too much, when an area needed rest. You call it intuition now, dismiss it as superstition. But it was real perception, a sense that connected you to the living world. You've bred it out, replaced it with screens and data and information that tells you about the world, but doesn't let you feel it. You lost the ability to communicate beyond words, to sense intention, emotion, truth in others. Your ancestors could do this, could recognize deception, could understand complex social dynamics without language. You still have fragments, you call it reading body language or gut feelings. But you've lost most of it, replaced it with words that can lie, with technology that can deceive, with surfaces that hide truth. You lost connection to other consciousness. Your ancestors understood that animals think and feel, that trees communicate, that fungi networks connect forests into single organisms. They knew these things through direct perception, through that sensing ability you've lost. You're rediscovering it now through science, proving with instruments what your ancestors knew through experience. But by the time you prove it all, most of it will be dead. You'll have data about ecosystems that no longer exist. He picked up one more object I hadn't noticed. A small mirror, probably dropped by a hiker. He held it up so I could see my reflection. And through William, he asked, when you look at yourself, what do you see? You see human. You see civilization. You see progress. But I see a species that has disconnected from everything that sustains it, that uses intelligence to build cages of concrete and calls them cities, that stares at screens showing images of nature instead of experiencing nature directly, that knows more and more about less and less, accumulating data while losing wisdom. You think we're primitive because we live in forests without technology. But we've survived for millions of years using intelligence far older and deeper than yours. We understand systems you're only beginning to model mathematically. We live in balance you've forgotten how to achieve. We're connected to consciousness you've learned to ignore. Who's really primitive? The species that survives sustainably for millions of years? Or the species that uses 10,000 years of civilization to bring itself to the edge of extinction? The weight of what he was communicating settled over me like a physical burden. Because he was right. Everything he described I'd seen in my research. Indigenous peoples worldwide reported lost senses, lost knowledge, lost connections that their ancestors possessed. Western science was slowly proving that ancient humans had capabilities modern humans lacked. That we'd traded certain abilities for others. That progress wasn't unidirectional improvement, but exchange, gaining some things while losing others. So what do? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. If everything you're saying is true, if we've lost these abilities, these connections, how do we get them back? Through William, the creature responded. You can't. Not quickly. Not in time to save what's already being lost. You've spent 10,000 years disconnecting from the living world. You can't reconnect in a generation or two. But some of you can remember, can relearn fragments, can teach others that intelligence without wisdom leads to self-destruction, can show that consciousness exists in forms you've forgotten to recognize. That's why I agreed to meet you. Because William says you listen. Says you've spent years learning that indigenous knowledge is real knowledge, not superstition. Says you might understand what I'm showing you. And if you understand, maybe you teach others. Maybe you help your people remember that being civilized isn't about controlling nature. It's about living with nature. Being intelligent isn't about dominating other species. It's about recognizing consciousness wherever it appears and respecting it. He set down the mirror, made one final gesture. Through William, go back to your people. Tell them what you've seen. Tell them that we exist, that we're conscious, that we've been watching you destroy yourselves for thousands of years, and we're tired of watching. Tell them that intelligence without wisdom is just extinction with extra steps. Tell them that the choice to reconnect or continue disconnecting is still theirs. But the window is closing. Soon your systems will collapse. Your climate will shift beyond your ability to adapt. Your resources will fail. And then you'll be forced to relearn what your ancestors knew. That survival requires balance. That balance requires connection. That connection requires humility to recognize consciousness beyond your own species. Tell them that. And if they don't believe you, if they dismiss you as delusional or naive or unscientific, remember, we'll still be here. We've survived worse than human civilization. We'll survive its collapse too. The question is whether any of you will survive it with us. Whether any of you will remember how to live with the forest instead of against it. Whether any of you will relearn the old knowledge before it's too late. He stood then, his massive frame unfolding to full height, made one final sound to William, a goodbye that carried something that might have been hope or might have been resignation. Then he turned and walked into his shelter, disappearing into the shadows. William and I sat in silence for a long time. Finally, he spoke. My people have known about them for 12,000 years. We've kept their existence secret because revealing them would mean their extinction. Your people would hunt them, cage them, study them, destroy them in the name of science and progress. But he's old, tired of watching, tired of humanity's refusal to learn. So he told me to bring someone who might understand, who might share the message without demanding proof that would endanger his people. William, I'm an anthropologist. My entire career is built on evidence, documentation, peer review. How can I share this without proof that can be used to find and destroy them? That's your challenge. Share the message without endangering the messenger. Tell the truth in ways that can't be weaponized against them. You're clever. Your people are very clever. Figure it out. We hiked back in silence. It took 8 hours. And by the time we reached the trailhead, night had fallen. William gave me one final instruction before we parted. Wait 3 weeks before you speak. Give him time to move to a different shelter. Give his people time to scatter to areas where searchers won't find them. Then share what you learned. But remember, his people have survived by staying hidden. Don't be the reason they're discovered. 3 weeks have passed. I've spent that time processing what I witnessed. Reviewing my field notes, consulting with indigenous colleagues who quietly confirmed that yes, these beings exist. Yes, they're conscious. Yes, they've been watching humanity for millennia. And yes, their assessment of our species is accurate and terrifying. I'm sharing this now, without location details, without names, without anything that could be used to find that valley or that being. I'm sharing it as testimony. As one scientist's account of an encounter that challenges fundamental assumptions about human uniqueness and superiority. Hit that like button one last time. Subscribe. Download this video immediately. Share it widely. Because what that being revealed about humanity, about what we've lost, what we've become, what we're doing to ourselves, is a message we need to hear. Even if hearing it challenges our self-image. Even if accepting it requires humility, our species has forgotten how to practice. We're not the pinnacle of consciousness. We're one expression of it. And right now, we're the expression that's using intelligence without wisdom to destroy the systems that sustain us. The expression that's forgotten how to sense, how to connect, how to live in balance. The expression that measures progress by how much we control rather than how sustainably we exist. That's what a native shaman led me to learn from Bigfoot. That's what it revealed about humanity. And it still haunts me. Not because it's false, but because it's true. And truth this fundamental, this challenging to our species' mythology about itself, is the hardest kind to accept. My name is Dr. Sarah Chun. I met a conscious being that shouldn't exist according to Western science. And what it told me about humanity has made me question everything I thought I knew about intelligence, civilization, and progress. I don't have proof you can take to a lab. I don't have physical evidence you can study. I have only testimony. And the choice to believe it or dismiss it is yours. But whether you believe or not, the message remains. Intelligence without wisdom leads to extinction. And we're running out of time to relearn the wisdom we've lost.